We now have our three students. Every year we advertise the Bryan Adams Memorial Studentship in medical schools across the UK. And Bryan Adams was our very first chairman. He helped us to register the charity and get a number and get started. This year we had many applicants, but we chose three who are going to present their work to us in 10 minutes each, if they can manage that. The first one is Elsa Harte, who is an Imperial College medical student in her final year. And she hails from Ireland, has a lovely little accent, so everybody listen up. She's going to talk about neonatal Marfan syndrome, and we'll hope to hear what she's done. She's done an amazing amount of work, including interviewing patients and writing a nice poster for us to take to scientific meetings. Elsa.
Thank you very much, Anne, for your lovely introduction. So just to repeat on that, my name is Elsa, and today I'll be presenting on the work that I did over the summer period on neonatal Marfan syndrome. So just as a general background, I'm sure as many of us know, Marfan syndrome is due to a mutation in the fibrillin-1 gene, and this mutation alters the connective tissue, which subsequently affects the skeletal system, the ocular system, and the cardiovascular system. And as well as I'm sure many of us know, it's predominantly inherited in an autosomal dominant pattern. But I suppose what we've seen is that these mutations in Marfan syndrome display significant differences, both within family members as well as between different families affected with Marfan syndrome. So neonatal Marfan syndrome, what's the difference? Well, up to 25% of Marfan syndrome cases are due to what's called a spontaneous mutation. So this is a new mutation. And this is certainly the case with neonatal Marfan syndrome, which presents with skeletal features such as long fingers and toes, as well as hyperextensibility, as well as cardiovascular compromise. So this can be with mitral and tricuspid valve regurgitation, as well as aortic root dilatation. So again, what's the difference between neonatal Marfan syndrome and that of classical Marfan syndrome? Well, the neonatal period is defined as that period in the first 28 days of the baby's life. And the presence of Marfan syndrome symptoms in this period, in the absence of a known or suspected family history, is consistent with suspected neonatal Marfan syndrome. Now, importantly, these patients do not have to be diagnosed within the first 28 days of life for this to be a diagnosis of neonatal Marfan syndrome, and the features can often present within the first year of life, and the child may be diagnosed within this time, and looking back, the symptoms are consistent with neonatal Marfan syndrome. So ultimately, how is it diagnosed? Well, at birth, every child will have an examination by their doctor, and as part of this, the doctor will listen to chest x-ray, so an image of the chest, to see if a diagnosis of Marfan syndrome is more likely. At this stage, if the doctor still suspects a diagnosis of neonatal Marfan syndrome, they can refer the child for a blood test. So this is genetic testing, where doctors such as Dr. Martin will have a look for the specific fibrillin-1 mutation, which can make a diagnosis of neonatal Marfan syndrome. So why do we need this research? Well, neonatal Marfan syndrome's low prevalence has limited the available evidence into the methods of treating this condition. So therefore, the increasing awareness that's currently existing around the world warrants further research into the specific genes associated with this condition, as well as the methods of effective intervention, which will ultimately support both the patients living with the condition as well as their families. So what did I get up to over the few weeks? Well, first off, I analysed the patient case reports and the familial proband, so these are genetic mutations, from the William Harvey Research Institute. From here, I identified those patients with neonatal Marfan syndrome. I then compared the FBN1 coding sequence variation with the reported Marfan syndrome subtypes of those patients on the universal FBN1 mutations database. So this is essentially an international database with patients who have a diagnosis of Marfan syndrome, and their exon mutations get uploaded. And this is really important because it allows us to compare the exon mutations of those patients with neonatal Marfan syndrome. So from here, I extracted those patients identified as having neonatal Marfan syndrome from the William Harvey Research Institute reports and compiled their clinical presentations as well as their genetic mutations. And then separately, I went on to PubMed, which is essentially a bank of literature of published case reports internationally, and I performed an independent literature search on neonatal Marfan syndrome articles from the years 2018 to 2023. So these are from the last 5 years. And this allowed me to compare the clinical presentation as well as the genetic mutations of those patients we identified with those that have been published internationally. And I suppose a highlight for me is I also had the opportunity throughout the summer to attend cardiology clinics with Dr. Nakfi, as well as interview some of the wonderful patients and the families of those patients with neonatal Marfan syndrome, which really allowed me to put the science into practice. So just a general overview of some of the results from my research. First off, with neonatal Marfan syndrome, how does it present? Well, from a genetic perspective, all of the patients we found with neonatal Marfan syndrome had exon mutations within the region of 24 to 32 on the fibrillin-1 gene. Now, this is consistent with previously published case reports and research, meaning our findings support the evidence. So within research, we have this concept of what's called reproducibility. And reproducibility essentially means that what we find is consistent with what's been published previously. And this is important within research because if we can demonstrate reproducibility, this gains traction into further research into these specific genetic mutations. From a cardiovascular perspective, a lot of these patients presented with leaky heart valves, which may present with difficulty breathing at birth or with a heart murmur, as well as aortic enlargement. So as I'm sure many of us know, the aorta is the main blood vessel which leaves the heart, and sometimes the connective tissue deficiency causes it to widen and become enlarged, and this was certainly the case for these patients with neonatal Marfan syndrome. Similar to that of classical Marfan syndrome, these patients can also have ocular features. So this includes lens subluxation, ectopia lentis, as well as difficulty seeing and following objects, as well as skeletal features such as being tall, having loose joints, longer limbs and toes, as well as a sunken chest or a protruding chest. And the important part is, how do we manage patients with neonatal Marfan syndrome? Well, similar to that of Marfan syndrome, the importance is the emphasis on the team. So initially, these patients can be treated with a number of medications. I'm sure many of these will be familiar to many of you. So these can be ACE inhibitors or ARB blockers, such as lisinopril, captopril, or losartan. These patients can also be given beta blockers, which slow down the heart rate and reduce the pressure on the heart, as well as diuretics, which reduce the blood pressure. And some other medications that work on the heart include digoxin, aspirin, milrinone, and sildenafil. And if the medical interventions don't optimize the child's management, they can also go on to have a number of surgical interventions. So these include surgeries on the heart, such as valve repair or replacement, as well as strengthening of the aorta. These children can also have surgery on the eyes, such as lens replacement, which tends to happen at or over the age of 8. They can also have surgery on their bones, such as spinal surgery. And again, this is usually not carried out until the patient is older. And as I said before, with the management of neonatal Marfan syndrome, teamwork is dreamwork, and multidisciplinary team plays a huge part in the management of patients with neonatal Marfan syndrome. So the baby will have regular follow-ups with a number of specialist doctors. So these include genetic doctors, such as Dr. Child, heart doctors, so these are your cardiologists, which include Dr. Nakfi, as well as eye doctors, so your ophthalmologists, and bone surgeons. These are your orthopedic surgeons. And this will be on top of an incredible team of nurses, physiotherapists, and occupational therapists, all of whom work together to ensure that the baby's long-term treatment is optimized for their individual needs. So the take-home message from my research project is that although at present there is no cure for patients with neonatal Marfan syndrome, expert care from the earliest age can improve the quality and the length of their life. And this is on top of the ongoing research that's going on into neonatal Marfan syndrome. So just as a final note, I'd like to say a few thank yous. So I'd like to extend my sincere gratitude to Dr. Martin, to Dr. Child, Victoria and Joanne, and Dr. Nakfi for giving me this incredible opportunity and delving me into the world of Marfan syndrome research over the summer period. And ultimately, I'd like to say a huge thank you to the wonderful patients and their families at the Marfan Trust UK, again, allowing me to put the science into practice and reiterating the importance of why we're doing this research. So that's all from me, and I'm happy to take any questions. And thank you very much for listening to me today.
Elsa mentioned that the mutations were located into 22. As well, the classical Marfan is also involved there. So we have to be very cautious in classifying the variant, because when you have a baby, it could be classified as an infantile or it could be classified as neonatal. And those are, I believe, two different outcomes as well.
Any other questions for Elsa? No, thank you very much. And if you'd like to stay with us, Elsa, we have a few words for you after this session.